Good evening and welcome to the channel. My name is James Elam and I'm a landscape photographer here in New Zealand. I would like to do something a little different in this video. Normally I'm out and about showing you great locations and photography in New Zealand, or I'm at my computer showing you some processes on how to do some post-production work. But today what I would like to do is show you my 10 best images from 2024. So I've got 10 images that I want to show you, and I'm going to present them to you in order as they were taken throughout the year, except for my favorite. I'm going to save that one for the very end. I also want to stop every once in a while and show an image and talk about maybe why that image did not work. So we'll go through a couple of images printed here, and then we'll go through some images on the computer. And we'll kind of switch back and forth and play it up. For some of these images, there's video from the location, so I'll share little snippets of video as well. And then finally, before we get going, I would like to thank my good friends over at ImageLab in Hamilton for helping me get these images printed so that I could have them ready to go for this video. So let's get started. So my first image is from Aotearoa Bay over on the east coast of the North Island of New Zealand. Went out with my friend Jared Wilson. I'll post a link below to his YouTube and his Instagram. We went out at night to capture the Milky Way. And we went out when we did in March of the year so that we could get the Milky Way rising at an angle that matched the angle of the cliff in the background. So timing was the name of the game for this photograph, and we had talked about it and we waited for the right time, the right weather to be able to capture what we wanted for an image. It's supposed to be a clear night, and that's the title of the image, a clear night in quotes. It wasn't quite as clear as we wanted it to be. However, it turned out pretty good and I'm quite happy with the image. It's actually a composite. It's a ISO 400 4-minute shot for the foreground, and then ISO 1600 15-second shot for the sky. So, yep, first image, really happy with this one. Image number 2 is my third attempt to capture sunbeams in steam coming off of this geothermally heated river in the central part of the North Island. So this is called Kerosene Creek, and there's a waterfall there that's a couple of meters high, but the important part about this was capturing it cold enough weather and the right time of year to get the sun coming through the steam coming off the river. River's about 40 degrees year-round, so it's really nice and comfortable in the wintertime to be in there trying to shoot. So I was down in the water with the camera shooting that image. Really happy with the deep dark blues of the water and the shadow and the coldness of that, and then offset with the warmth of the upper portion of the image in the trees, in the steam with the rays. So really happy with this image, and again, like with the first one, timing was critical to make sure that all of the elements came together to give me what I wanted in this image. All right. There's a couple. Let's take a look at one on the computer that may not have worked the way I wanted it to. Okay, we've taken a look at a couple of long exposure images there. Now let's take a look at one that maybe didn't quite work. So, went out to Aotearoa mining tracks, and I had heard that there was some good water images in there, and I had heard that there was some really good forest bush photography. Walking through a couple of kilometers in, I really hadn't found much that I wanted to photograph. Came across this scene here, and small intimate scene, and you know, there are 3 little waterfalls here. 3 is always a good number. I didn't have my circular polarizer with me, so this rock here in the middle ends up with a lot of glare on it, which makes it very bright and makes it difficult to deal with. It wants to be the focus of the image, and I want the water to be the focus of the image. Also, this green area, all of this lichen down here at the bottom, it was really, really bright, and I've already taken it down quite a bit through masking, and if I take it down any more, then it starts to look really mushy, like split pea soup, and I don't really want that. I felt that after the distance that I had walked and the amount of effort that I had put into this, that this image here was just a bit forced and just really didn't quite work. Alright, the next image is Aotearoa Falls. My friend Tim Stewart and I went out for an afternoon of shooting, and I captured this image here. And what I was wanting for this is the waterfall at Aotearoa doesn't have a huge flow, but it's got all of those shelves, all of those white shelves that set up for lots and lots of streaks in the water as the water falls over. So this is about a quarter of a second shot, and I really like how the tree in the upper portion adds a little bit of a frame, but also adds a punch of warmth and color in an otherwise monochromatic gray cold image. Really happy with this one. Like I am with all of them, they're my top 10 favorites from the year. So again, Aotearoa Falls, and I'll post a link to Tim Stewart's stuff on Instagram down below. As you know, I went to Iceland last year, and so I've got a few images from Iceland. Of course, major event for me and major photographic opportunity. I came back with something like 4,300 images from the trip, 14 days. It was glorious. I will not try to pronounce the name of the canyon, but I will post it down below. But this canyon here, the wall is 100 meters high. The river down at the bottom, nice curving river, disappears behind the wall and then reappears again and then disappears and reappears, and it's got that cold steel color to it. And then you've got the gray walls, cold, lifeless, but then you've got the punch of green and yellow where you've got the life clinging to the rocks, the dark basalt rocks, and the nice bright green and yellow moss and lichen that's hanging out, trying to eke out a living in a rather desolate landscape. Bit of a happy accident that we found this. I went to this location for the waterfall that's up at the end of the canyon, and I got some pretty good images from that waterfall, but this one really speaks to me and gives me joy in looking at it because of, you know, the location, the fact that I wasn't expecting it, and, you know, like I said, a happy accident. The last couple of images have dealt with lines and curves and shapes and the forms that those can create. They both worked quite well. However, in this image here from Naranui Beach, what I saw was a nice gentle curve in the sand that had been left behind by the receding tide. Standing there, it looked really, really good. Looking at this thumbnail up here, you can almost see what I saw, but you know, this is kind of the quintessential example of a beautiful scene doesn't necessarily make a beautiful image, and there's just not enough of a bump here in the sand to really see the curve and understand what it is you're looking at. There's not enough contrast to really draw out the differentiation between the highlights and the shadows. It just looks like kind of a swept across mess. It's not at all what I had in mind when I took the image. But let's head back now and take a look at a couple of more prints and see how those went. My next shot is from Diamond Beach, which is in a glacial lagoon in Iceland. and it has all of these little bits of ice up on the shore. And glacial ice, there's no air bubbles whatsoever. It's crystal clear, just beautiful, just sitting there. This little piece here is about the size of my fist, and those little spikes, I didn't want to touch it because I didn't want to break them off. They seemed rather fragile, and a little bit difficult shooting this because the water kept, as we were on an incoming tide, as the tide was coming into the lagoon, kept hitting the ice and moving it around, so I had to keep recomposing as the ice moved to try to get the image that I wanted. But really happy with how this image came out, and I'm really happy with the blues and yellows that you can see in the ice from the water in the background and the sun that was streaming in from the left hand side into the ice. Number 6 was on the road in Iceland. We were trying to race across the top of the island from east to west, and took a break on the side of the road, and this scene is what was before us, and pulled out my camera. This is a 3-shot pano, and it has been converted to black and white, but I really didn't need to, because the black basalt rocks, the white snow, the gray clouds, there's virtually no color in this image. There may be just a tiny bit of lichen you can see, but this is fairly new land in Iceland, and so it's, yeah, there's not much there. Definitely no grass, no trees, nothing like that. Just really enjoy the contrast of this landscape, the blacks, the whites, and the moody clouds. Mood. Really enjoy it. So much so that I'm in process of getting this printed about 1 meter wide by about 1/2 meter high, to hang somewhere in the studio here. All right, number 6. You would think going to Iceland that it would be an easy place to catch images, and sometimes it is, but I'm here to tell you that it's also not always easy to get the good shot. And this is a prime example. We are on our way to Kirkjufell, and we were shooting across the North end of Iceland to catch some aurora. We'd stopped. We thought this was a beautiful scene, but I just can't make anything of it. The road here is very brown, and it's straight, and then it's got a bend, and then it's straight again, and it gets lost in the background. The hillside over here is very dark, and I've pulled the shadows out as much as I can without it getting really, really noisy, and it's still really dark. There's lots of unattractive sky, uneventful sky. There's not much going on. The mountains are kind of too far in the distance to really see what's going on. And then all of these orange markers to indicate where the road is in the wintertime. There's just so many of them, and I just don't like them. So Iceland is a beautiful place to photograph. However, this image just doesn't really work. It's got a lot of good ingredients to it, but it's not coming together for me. All right. After that image, let's take a look at a couple of sunrises. So the first sunrise is from Reynistrangar in Iceland, and this is a scene that's just on the southern coast, just outside of the village of Vik. We spent a couple of days there, and I wanted to capture this at sunrise, and what I really wanted was the black silhouette cliff, the sea stacks in silhouette, and then just a little bit of cloud with the sunrise in the background. The water is cold and blue, as it should be. The beach is black basalt rock, as Iceland is. And yeah, timing, planning ahead, getting there early. This was about a 6:30 sunrise after a night of aurora shooting, so a little tired. But again, this came out to be really, really a beautiful photo, and I'm quite happy with it. So that morning, as we were driving back from that location, we're heading back into the village of Vic, and we come around the corner, and Vic is famous for its red church that sits up on a bluff above the village, and it's kind of isolated and by itself. And we come around that corner, and you can see the church, no village, and it's just there by itself. And so I talked with a couple of the other guys that I was traveling with, and we decided that we would come back the next morning for sunrise there to get the church in silhouette, the sun rising over the bluff, and go for something just a little bit different than the normal images we had seen of the Vic Church. So here is number 8, the Vic Church, sunrise silhouetted against the sky. So we've got really, really dark ground, pretty much pure black, the church itself, and then sunrise. Happy with the sun star. It got a little bit of a sun star coming off that sunrise, and then just gradual gradient in the sky. A little bit of planning, a little bit of, get up and get going. Even though you spent a night out shooting aurora, get up, get going, get the image. So yeah, this just really, really happy with this one. Let's head over to the computer and let's take a look at one more shot. The last couple of images have been about sunrises, and here's one more sunrise to take a look at and talk about why it just doesn't quite work for me. What I was going for with this image, what I wanted, I had been to this location before. This is Ohope Beach on the east coast of the North Island. Is I wanted the layering of these mountains right here. I wanted this layering in this little area with these clouds, and I wanted the sunrise, and I wanted the cold. I wanted it all to work. Unfortunately, it's such a small part of the image, maybe 10 or 15% of the image, that it gets kind of lost. The sunrise is great. There's great crepuscular rays. The clouds look beautiful. But what I wanted, the layering, just really isn't there, and it gets lost in such a large image. All right, we've seen 3 sunrises in a row, and so now it's time for something a little different. How about a sunset? So, second to last image, this is sunset at a place called Matapawa Bay. It's up on the Coromandel on the eastern side of the North Island. Went out here for sunset, so sunset image, and really happy with the dreamsicle oranges in the sky and the really beautiful purples of the land and the water below. Got some layering in the mountains, and then there's some layering in the clouds, and I like how those two things mirror each other, even though they're in different colors. But I do like the orange and purple. I like the way this thing turned out. And this is from New Year's Eve, so December 31st, 2024. This is how I celebrated my New Year's. Just a beautiful image, really happy with how this thing came out again. Now we're finally to my favorite image from the year, and a set of images from Iceland would not be complete if you didn't have a little bit of aurora. But one of the reasons this image here is my favorite image from the year is because of the story behind it. This is the famous Black Church in Iceland. We had driven around to Kirkjufell to shoot aurora. But weather moved in, unpredicted weather moved in, and really kind of messed up the scene. We were standing there, it was 11:30 at night. We were standing there thinking about what we could do, and we noticed that, unexpected weather, that the Kirkjufell is on a little bit of a peninsula, and the church is on the other side of the peninsula. Kirkjufell on the northern side, mountains that make up the peninsula, and then Black Church, southern side. So on a whim, on a lark, on a hope that maybe something was going off there, we drove around at 11:30, drove around the peninsula to Black Church, and yeah, no clouds, and aurora was kicking off. This image here, just the greens, the yellows, the oranges, the whites, really, really, really happy with how this image came out. I like the streaky, spiky nature of the aurora as opposed to the ribbons that you normally see or the curtains of aurora that you normally see. So just a little bit different, and with the church silhouetted in the foreground, or almost silhouetted in the foreground, you can see its white door. Yeah, the image came out way better than I expected it to. So this image right here is my favorite image from 2024. Let me know in the comments what you think of the images. Which one's your favorite? Do you like the aurora image from the Black Church in Iceland, or is something else your favorite out of this set of 10? Or have you seen something from a previous video that you think I missed that should be on my list that I didn't include? Let me know in the comments below. The store on my website is currently being revamped, and I've found a new supplier that I'm going to be using for my prints. So the new supplier is going to cut down shipping costs dramatically. So when you want to purchase an image, shipping will no longer be a major cost of the image. I would like to thank you for spending the last little bit with me as I went through my images. I hope you enjoyed this video, as it's a little bit of a change from what I normally do. But here in a couple of weeks, we will be back to the normal out in the field, capturing images in front of the computer, processing images, and getting them ready for printing or publication. Again, my name is James Elam. I'm a landscape photographer here in New Zealand. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good evening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.